Salga in Kwazulu-Natal has raised concern about the impact of power cuts on other municipal services such as water and sanitation. The association says this has had a devastating effect not only on households, communities and businesses, but also on economic growth. Let's discuss this further. I'm joined now by Thamsanqa Ntuli. He is the Salga Kwazulu-Natal chairperson. And Mr. Ntuli, good evening and thank you for your time. In a moment, we will talk about the solutions that you foresee, but not before we color in the details of just how disruptive the power cuts are to municipal services. You flag here the issue around water reticulation in particular.
Yeah, absolutely, Thulasizwe. Good evening to yourself and your listeners, your viewers. Well, you know, the impact is that when you talk about KwaZulu-Natal local government or municipalities, most of them, majority, they are rural. And in terms of the budget they are receiving is quite minimal, understanding that the rural communities are still facing a huge backlog in terms of the services. So this situation of the load shedding, which is persistent for almost 4 hours a day, in fact, it results to the failure to accumulate sufficient water so as to reticulate water to the communities. And the unfortunate part is that the water tankers, which could be an alternative measure of supplying water, they are quite exorbitant, they are quite very expensive. And local government cannot sustain supply or the supply of water through the water tankers due to the fact that the budget they have is quite very minimal. It's not even equal to the services that they are providing to the communities. And the councillors, they are the ones who are at the cold face, who are facing the anger of the community, that they need water now. They are there as councillors, but they can't do so. Hence, we believe as Salga in KwaZulu-Natal, there is a need to consider other sources of even energy provision.
Yeah.
But the unfortunate part is that the budget they have cannot enable them to source other sources of energy.
Yeah. I imagine that resource constraint, financial resource constraint, is part of the explanation why many of these municipalities will not even have proper backup generators to run such things as, you know, what you call high lift pumping systems, as well as the treatment plants. I hadn't thought about that area of things that says, you know, you need electricity to pump out water, and where a municipality doesn't have the financial muscle to have a backup system, that's it. You can't pump out water.
Absolutely, Thulasizwe, because, you know, when you talk about the municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal, they cover the vast area, and the water sources or water plants, there are quite many. If you can think of even considering buying a generator, it means you'll buy how many generators that will cover the whole of the district. It's quite giving a very negative impact. You know, KwaZulu-Natal is facing this situation at a time where we're coming from the looting, which took place, we're coming from the disaster of COVID, we're coming from the recent heavy rains disaster. And now we're faced with this one now, which is the issue of load shedding, which is really suffocating the local government, suffocating the trust that the communities have on our councillors. They are the one, in fact, that are facing the anger, as I said prior. And we need a solution to this issue of ESCOM. Yeah. If there is no solution, other sources ought to be considered. We are calling upon our municipalities to consider other sources, at the same time saying that, understanding that they don't have enough budget to do so, also calling upon the treasurer to consider, in fact, giving more additional fund or additional funding to municipalities for the specific purpose, so that they will be able actually to sustain this a basic human rights service, which is the provision of water, because no one can live without water as we speak now, there are communities that have been having no water for a very long time. You just imagine for those who are living in townships, those who are living in urban places, how do they actually go to the toilets, the flushing toilets, when there is no water? The problem of electricity, as Salga in Kwazulu-Natal, we see it adding a burden on already existing a burden to local government in KwaZulu-Natal.
But in as far as Durban in particular, is it your understanding, and I believe it is, that Durban, eThekwini continues to be, excluded from the load shedding, rotational load shedding that the country has been subjected to these last few weeks?
Well, one has no information pertaining that they're actually excluded. But I know that places such as the second economic hub, such as Richards Bay, that they are part of this load shedding. If then that could be the case, well, it's a different story. But I was once in the area of Durban where I expressed the same load shedding, but I'm not quite certain as we speak now whether there's some kind of exclusion. All
right, no, that's fine. I was raising that question in the context where there was that announcement following the floods that Durban, eThekwini would be excluded to just help with the communities coping with a very difficult situation. I did see some reports that suggest that that continues to be the case, but I'm sitting in Johannesburg and I have no way of knowing that for sure. We'll have to check with the good people at Megawatt Park. Lastly, you are talking about appealing, Mr. Ntuli, to communities to give local government a chance to look at alternative energy sources that will result in gradually transitioning away from Eskom coal-generated electricity. Let me say to you, in a context where your own municipalities and municipal leadership fail dismally in many instances to manage what little resources they have. I hear you talking about the budgets not being there, but even what little that's there, year after year, some of your own members battle to manage that. Let me suggest to you that asking for communities to be patient while you're exploring, looking at alternative energy sources is it's pretty much, with due respect, pie in the sky, because at this rate, it's unlikely that many municipalities that you lead, that you represent, will ever get to the point where they are able to carry out this transition away from Eskom.
Well, Thulasizwe, the fact that when you talk about KwaZulu-Natal, even the AG's report, though it shows some regression, but some of the municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal were able to get a clean audit, and others, the majority, the unqualified audit opinion, which is an indication that there is some kind of a movement. And as Salga, we are doing a lot to support municipalities to be able to manage the leak that they have. It has history, in fact, what is happening in local government or our municipalities in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. However, ourselves as the Association of the Local Government, we are doing a lot to empower the leaders or the councillors to play their oversight role, and even to empower the officials. We even send our experts to spend days in the municipalities so as to enable them to be able to handle their finances. And we believe not all is doom. A lot has been done by local government, though there are issues that we really need to take care of. And I agree with you that it may seem as if it's too much to ask for the committees to persevere with us. But the truth of the matter, within the wink of the eye, we can't have a solution in this disaster, which is now caused by the load shedding. And we believe that understanding that the load shedding is a national thing, and local government has not sufficient resources to find other solutions. That is why one is appealing that they must understand that the problem is not caused by councillors, but there are things that we ought to do to ensure that the issue you are raising is attended to. But at the same time, the issue of load shedding is an issue which is a national disaster or national crisis.
Thamsanqa Ntuli, I've got to thank you for your time. He is the chairperson of Salga, the South African Local Government Association in KwaZulu-Natal.